Welcome to this video from the MEA Windows Server Competency Club. My name is Manfred Helber. I'm a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional in the category Cloud and Data Center, and I'm based in Germany. Our topic in this video is Windows Admin Center with a focus on Azure Backup and Azure Site Recovery. Let's have first a look at Windows Admin Center and the hybrid services themselves. If you want to know more about how to install Windows Admin Center and about the architecture of Windows Admin Center, I recommend you to join the MEA Windows Server Competency Club on LinkedIn. You can join this community via linkedin.com/groups/90493.5. And in this competency club group on LinkedIn, you will find a lot of additional information about Windows Server, about Windows Admin Center. There you will find step-by-step guide about how to install Windows Admin Center and how to enable Windows Admin Center to use hybrid services. So let's have a look about the hybrid services that are available in Windows Admin Center. You can see it starts on the first category with the setup of Azure Arc. Azure Arc is very, very powerful to manage your on-premises infrastructure, to monitor your on-premises infrastructure together with Azure Monitor. So Azure Arc is the recommendation. It's not necessary to have this in the first step, but it's a recommendation to configure Azure Arc. Then you can see we have technologies like Azure File Sync to sync files with the cloud. We have the Azure Network Adapter. We have Azure Monitor for monitoring. We have the Azure Update Management, Azure Security Center for monitoring security relevant settings and also configuring and handling this, the Azure Extended Networking. And our two topics we want to talk about today, Azure Backup and Azure Site Recovery. Azure Backup is very, very powerful to back up your on-premises, but also your Azure-related workload. We want to focus on our on-premises workload. So we want to talk about how to back up Windows Server-based workload with Azure Backup. When we have a look at the architecture of Azure Backup, we can see we have our on-premises infrastructure on the left-hand side, and there we are working with backup agents, and these backup agents, they ensure that the data is backed up to the cloud, to the Azure data centers. The advantage of this Azure Backup is that we have an offsite backup location. We have really, really powerful mechanisms to configure the time the data is stored, the resiliency the data is stored. We will see this later in our live demo. So the Azure Backup service itself is hosted in Azure. So the component on premises is the Azure Backup agent. The Azure Backup service is an Azure Cloud Services hosted in the worldwide Azure data centers. For sure, you can configure Azure Backup with a manual step-by-step action, and the step-by-step action is documented in docs.microsoft.com. So to configure Azure Backup without Windows Admin Center, we will see the Windows Admin Center related configuration in a few minutes in the live demo. When we configure Azure Backup without Windows Admin Center, we have to start with the Azure subscription. We also need the Azure subscription to use Azure Backup together with Windows Admin Center. To be able to run backups, to store backups in the Azure data centers, we need a recovery services vault. Our backup vault where all the data is securely stored. This backup vault can be created in the Windows Admin Center. So we don't need the manual steps via the Azure portal where maybe not everybody is familiar with it. In the Recovery Services Vault, Azure Backup provides the vault credential file and the backup agent itself. So the piece of software we have to install on our Windows Server or Windows Workstation machines is provided via the Azure portal where we can download it. We will see this in the live demo in a few minutes. When we do it with the Windows Admin Center, the agent is deployed automatically. The registration is done automatically. And after installation of the backup agent, we are able to run the backup of folders, files, and also system state on premises towards the recovery services vault in the Azure Data Center. Now we want to have a look how this works with the Windows Admin Center, because in the Windows Admin Center we have the perfect, easiest way to configure this. I prepared two servers for our live demo. You can already see the Windows Admin Center here, and in the Windows Admin Center there are two connections we want to use. The server 01, the first one here, is already configured for Azure Backup. We will use this server because it needs a while till the first backup is finished. You can imagine if you want to store 100 gigabytes of data in Azure Backup, you have first to transfer this 100 gigabytes of data. And this is the reason why I prepared the server 01. The server 02 is only a Windows server that is already registered in the Windows Admin Center, and we want to configure Azure Backup here now. If you are wondering how to get this Windows Admin Center and how to bring a server here into the Windows Admin Center, then again, my recommendation to join the MEA Windows Server Competency Club on LinkedIn, where you will find a detailed step-by-step guide how to get started with the Windows Admin Center. So let's have a look at the server 02. I will connect to this machine. So it's actually connecting. And we have several areas where we can configure Azure Backup. My way will be, I will do it via the Azure Hybrid Center, but you can see here it's also available via the Azure Backup entry on the tools list here on the left-hand side. So let's have a short look at the server 02. The server 02 is a Windows Server 2022. It can also be 2019, 2016. So the backup agent is also available for previous versions. When we have a look here at the control panel and the installed software, and we can see there's actually only a Microsoft Edge browser on this machine. This Edge browser comes with Windows Server 2022 in the graphical user interface installation. So now I want to use the Azure Hybrid Center to enable Azure Backup. And we will see the list of hybrid services you have already seen in the screenshot. And the first step is here again, set up Azure Arc. I will not set up Azure Arc to showcase to you that Azure Backup can be run independently from Azure Arc. Important is the message. I would recommend you to enable every server for Azure Arc. We will also talk about Azure Arc in other videos and activities. So Azure Arc is a very, very important server, a service for the future of your Microsoft-based workloads. But to ensure that you understand the relation between the services, I will showcase to you, this is only a recommendation. It's also my recommendation. I will set up Azure Backup independently. So I click on Azure Backup here. I click on Setup. And we can see here a message, welcome to Azure Backup. And when we have a look at it, we get a short explanation. We can learn more via docs.microsoft.com. We see here information, how much will it cost. So when you use cloud-based services, you should always ensure that you are aware of the costs of these services. And I want to set up Azure Backup here now. So let's click on Set up Azure Backup. The Azure Backup page is loading, and I have already configured my Windows Admin Center to work with my Azure subscription. As I mentioned, in the MEA Windows Server Competency Club LinkedIn channel, there's a documentation available how to prepare this. So set up Azure Backup. I click on Show Details, and I want to use another subscription ID in my environment. So I have 2 subscriptions in my Azure tenant here. I want to create a new Windows Admin Center backup vault. So if you already have one vault, you can decide if you back up this server to the existing vault or if you want to have a new vault. You do not need a new vault for each server. Then we have the resource group. I will use the Windows Admin Center resource group, and I want to use this in West Europe, where I am based. You can choose your preferred region here. So I will not only back up the system state, I want also to protect the system drive. We can protect additional drives if there are additional drives in the server. I want to retain the data for 4 weeks. I want to retain the system state schedule for 4 weeks. And now I need an encryption passphrase. The important thing is this is a key that's only available on my side. So Microsoft has no access to my data. So important is to not lose this key, to ensure that you remember this key. Because if you lose everything on premises and you want to restore, you need this key to access your data. So I will enter a secure key and I have a typo in it. And I confirm this key. And now I can apply the Azure Backup. So this will need a few minutes or a few seconds to create the new Microsoft Azure Recovery Services vault. This is what happens here. I don't have to log into the Azure portal. I don't have to know how to create this vault. I don't have to know how to create the certificate. And I don't have to know how to set up the Azure Backup agent, because this is done by the Windows Admin Center, by the powerful workflow behind the Windows Admin Center. So now setting up Azure Backup Agent, this will need a few minutes to finish because the Azure Backup Agent is downloaded to my target server. My target server is the server 02, and the agent is installed there. Maybe we already can see this agent on the server too. Let's have a look at the programs and features. And here you can see it already installed this agent. So it's finishing some installation step here, setting up Azure Backup Agent on this server. Here you can see this registering Azure Backup Agent. And this is what the installation of the Azure Recovery Services agent installed on my target server. So I think it's important to understand how easy it is to enable a hybrid service like Azure Backup via the Windows Admin Center. So if I have already the Azure know-how, I have here an easy tool to configure it. And if I don't have the Azure know-how, I have a tool here that enables me to use these powerful Azure services. So let's switch to the prepared server 01, because when the Azure Backup is configured and the Azure Backup configuration is finished, I can have a look here on the Azure Backup configuration on this prepared server, and you will receive this Azure Backup overview page where you can see the number of jobs that have been run, the successful jobs, the failed jobs, the warnings, the recovery points for files and folders, the recent jobs that have finished. I can choose a backup now. I can stop the backup. I can delete backup data. So this is my tool where I can also have a look at the recovery points and the jobs on this system that are actually running or maybe scheduled. And for sure, alerts and notifications. If I want to have an automatic alerting via email, I configure this via the Windows, via the Microsoft Azure portal to get notified via email if a backup fails, if I'm running out of data on premises and so on. In combination with Azure Monitor, it's really, really very powerful. So we have seen how easy it is to configure this architecture via the Windows Admin Center. So now the backup agent on my target server backups files, folders, and system state to the Azure Recover Services vault. So this, let's say, somehow complex infrastructure is automatically configured via the Windows Admin Center. And it's similar with the Azure Site Recovery. Azure Site Recovery is even more powerful than Azure Backup, because when we are running Azure Backup, we will be able to back up our data to Azure, and we can recover the data wherever we want if we have the necessary backup vault key. This is required to access the data. With the Azure Site Recovery, we have the capability to switch with the workload to Microsoft Azure in a case of a disaster. So let's imagine we have here some legacy workload, for example, an IIS, and we have a SQL Server. It's a previous SQL Server workload. We use the site recovery to replicate the data to an Azure Blob Storage. And in the case of a failover, we have the situation that our local workload fails, but the IIS VM and with SQL Server VM can be created and started in the Azure failover site. Important is this note here: VMs aren't created until failover occurs. This is important because, as you know, in Azure we have usage-based costs. So our Azure costs depend on the blob storage capacity we need, on the number of VMs we have, based on the number of CPU cores, based on the memory, based on the storage of these VMs. And so the Azure Site Recovery is cost optimized because the VMs aren't created until the failover occurs. For sure, you can also run Azure Site Recovery in a more complex scenario. Here you can see a company scenario where we have Linux machines, where we have Windows Server-based SharePoint VMs, we have dynamic CRM, we have SQL Server again on premises. For SQL Server, we could, for example, run SQL Server always on side-by-side recovery plan, where we have our instance on premises and the instance in the cloud. And again, we have the capability to switch the complete workload to the Azure Data Center in the case of an emergency. So this is really powerful if we want to have a geo-redundant backup location for our workload, not only to restore it in a case of emergency, but also to be able to run the workload in Azure. Let's have also a short look about how to configure the Azure Site Recovery. The Azure Site Recovery is also available via the Azure portal, but it's also available via the Windows Admin Center again. So let's have a look at the Hyper-V host I've prepared for our live demo. This is a very small Hyper-V host. This Hyper-V host only has 2 virtual machines. Let's have a look at these virtual machines. And in the list of the virtual machines, I can see here a virtual machine, the nested virtual machine 01. For sure, I can start this virtual machine, and when I go to Manage, I will see there's an option Replicate using Azure Site Recovery. And when I want to protect this virtual machine with the Azure Site Recovery, then I can see here I have my subscription, the Azure sponsorship, I have a location West Europe, I have a Windows Admin Center vault, and I can create a new storage account. I want to use this. I have a VAC demo storage, and I have the mistake, only lowercase letters are allowed here. VAC-demo storage. This is the special thing about the storage accounts. VAC-demo storage. I want to protect my VM, and so I will see here protecting the VM with Azure Site Recovery. So again, I don't need the full complexity behind Azure Site Recovery. I only use the Windows Admin Center to protect this VM. Now the VM is replicated to Microsoft Azure. I can switch the workload to Microsoft Azure. What's important to keep in mind, and we have seen this in the overview here, for sure, we have to care and to ensure how we will be able to access this workload in Azure. Maybe we need an VPN to handle. For sure, we have also to ensure that our Active Directory is replicated and so on. So in real life, it will be necessary to replicate additional VMs to have the full workload available in Microsoft Azure. So this was the short video about Azure Backup and Azure Site Recovery, including 2 live demo videos here in this video. If you want to get more in touch with Windows Admin Center and Windows Server 2022, again, my recommendation to join the MEA Windows Server Competency Club on LinkedIn. It's a free offer for you. You only have to navigate to linkedin.com/groups/90493.493.5. And there you can access this additional mentioned information for free. So thank you from my side for watching this video about Windows Admin Center, and I'm looking forward to see you in the next videos about more topics about Windows Admin Center and Windows Server here in the MEA Windows Server Competency Club. Thank you.